So, the transfer window came to an end, and of course, Leeds United fans are doing what they normally do, and that is panicking. Because Leeds United didn't get anyone in on deadline day, despite various links being thrown around at the last minute. It seemed like from very early on in the day, it was going to be quiet. But I'm going to make this video to sort of say we don't need to panic. If we have a look at things objectively, things aren't as bad as they seem. But before I dive into absolutely everything, because I know someone is going to shout at me in the comments saying, "Oh, guess you wouldn't have wanted someone then," I have written a short disclaimer amidst my many notes. Um, to start, I want to be clear, I wanted another player too. However, I'm going to look at the situation objectively and see that actually we're not effectively relegated as much as many people are saying that. So, to just first dive into it, we need to acknowledge the fact that there weren't any signings on deadline day. But I think before anything else, you need to point out that that sort of suits the club's MO perfectly. Like, the modus operandi is basically, here's the plan, stick within the plan. If there's anything outside of the plan, don't do it. And it always seems to be, as we saw in the summer, work meticulously through the plan, and if it doesn't work out, then you don't do anything. And whilst that is going to be frustrating for some people, I think there are several places in which that's kind of clever. So, for example, the fact that we basically said we value Strand Larsen at most 40 million quid. That's the ceiling. And the moment Palace push above that, and we'll get to Palace at some point later, we say, okay, no, that's not worth it. And I have seen a few people sort of saying, like, 49 is trying to do it on the cheap and all this kind of stuff. If you can genuinely look, I say look me in the eye, I don't really have eyes to you right now, but if you can look my face in the eye right now and say that you genuinely believe Strand Larsen was worth the amount of money Crystal Palace have paid for him, that's up to you. But absolutely no one else believes that, which is sort of proving a point. And in addition to that, I think sticking to our guns can be and has been beneficial because there isn't really a point in panic buying. Looking at the summer window, what we wanted was all of the positions that we got, and then coming out of it, everyone was effectively saying, we kind of needed one more. We needed someone in that right wing, number 10 sort of role that is able to sort of progress the ball and make us a little bit more dangerous and create chances and all this kind of stuff. And we got that in the form of Facundo Buonanotte. Because whilst he left Chelsea, we immediately jumped and we took advantage of the opportunity. You will have seen the sort of tweet that cycled around from it was probably a press conference, which was Daniel Farke saying, "We are ready for any opportunities that arise." One of those was Buonanotte. Another one of those was Strand Larsen, because Strand Larsen becoming on the market is a case of, oh, he's a very good player, let's go for him, but let's set ourselves limits. By doing that, I think we ended up in a position of we got what we wanted from transfers this season. The squad is, I would argue, stronger than we came into the window with. So, all the sort of discussion around is Calvert-Lewin injured, is Joe Rodon injured, is X, Y, or Z player injured? Graham Smith put out a tweet having sort of checked and effectively said, I've heard absolutely nothing about that. We won't know for certain until the press conference on Wednesday, but in the event that those players are fit, we're currently stronger than we were. No one was looking at Jack Harrison and saying, oh, he needs to play a little bit of football. He needs to be playing for Leeds United right now. No, because every single time we saw him on a football pitch, we went, how do we find a buyer for this guy? And eventually we did, or at least on loan with an option to buy in Fiorentina. But ultimately, I think we made the right move. Swapping out Harrison for Buonanotte put us in a far stronger position. And when it comes to the don't make sure you panic buy anything, the PSR was already fragile enough. We know we were dancing on the limits. The only way we would have funded Strand Larsen is in the event that Piru would have left. Another sidebar, it's not always entirely in your control. It is without a doubt that Joel Piru, in the ideal world for the 49ers, would have left. Whether that's permanently or on loan, there were plenty of suitors. Ipswich, perfect club for him, fighting for promotion in the Championship, maybe he can stick around there next season. Rangers, very high level club, playing in Europe consistently, same sort of ownership group. Various sides in Europe, including PSV as another example, but Piru effectively said, no, actually, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to play 203 minutes in the first half of the season and that's going to be fine. Which isn't something that we can control. We can't say, no, out the door, be gone, because he has a contract. That's how this works. He'll leave in summer, I'm 100% sure. But up until that point, you can't just force him to leave, which is, I think, one of the issues that we sort of jumped into. And one of the biggest arguments, and this is a fairly significant one, that I've seen around the transfer window is, look at what all the other clubs around us have done. Everyone around us is strengthening. So I thought I'd take a look at the actual moves that the clubs around us have done and establish whether or not they are actually strengthening, and then get a little bit of a judgment from there. And I'm starting with Palace, right? Because Palace are on the slide at the moment. They are slipping down the table. They are not in a fun position. They sold their captain in this window, Mark Gay, who was their best centre-back quite comfortably. And then everyone's looking, yeah, but they signed a bunch of players to sort of make up for it. Sure, they signed Brennan Johnson, who is a winger. They signed Evan Gesson, who is a winger. They signed Jurgen Strand-Larsen, who is a striker. And they couldn't get rid of Jean-Philippe Mateta. None of that is rebalancing the fact that their best player is gone and the rest of their centre-backs, their fans think, are kind of bad, which means that they're very vulnerable at the back of the pitch, and they've got a very pissed-off Mateta ruining sort of the vibe in the dressing room. They spent 83 million quid to not replace him, which is insanity. And then you get to Burnley, who, yeah, sure, they're not really in the conversation, but I've seen a couple of people say, yeah, even Burnley signed someone. Yeah, they signed, like, James Ward-Prowse, who, if you signed him 6 years ago, brilliant, good deal. But they didn't. They signed him now, when an already sort of set-piece heavy midfielder is even more past it than he was when he was somehow getting picked for England, because I'll be honest, in my opinion, all James Ward-Prowse has been at any point is a set piece and the occasional nice pass. He doesn't do too much in midfield. Burnley, I think, will not be a threat, and when it comes to Forest, sure, they've done quite well. Luca Netz, genuinely good move, pretty damn good left back, €2.5 million, fair play to them. But Ortega isn't going to make that much of a difference because keepers make a very minimal difference. Matt Sells, I believe, is still at Forest off the top of my head. But they already have decent keepers, so adding Ortega to the pile, it feels like that Forest thing of just stockpiling footballers. And then Lorenzo Luca, a lot of people have looked at and gone, wow, he's a big lad that plays up top, that'd be a quite interesting one. Yeah, it would be a quite interesting one, but he's not technically very good. He's effectively Chris Wood if you took away some of his technical ability. It's not that brilliant for them. Next up, you got West Ham. A lot of people have looked at that and they've gone, well, they signed Tati Castellanos, who is a very, very good player. They signed Pablo Felipe, who was reasonably good over in Portugal. They signed Adama Traore. But then you look at the players that left, and you look at Luis Guillem, who is gone, who is a very, very promising young winger, isn't there anymore. Fulkrug, another one, that is out the window. Lucas Paqueta, their best player reasonably comfortably, is also out the window. For me, Guillem is better than Adama Traore. Paqueta is better than Castellanos. And Fulkrug is probably better than Pablo Felipe. They've gone sideways. And a lot of people will say, yeah, but they've also signed Disasi. Okay, a single centre-back isn't going to fix your season, especially when some of your problems were going forwards and your best creator isn't at the club anymore. And even Spurs look like a worse side because they sold Brennan Johnson and they got Conor Gallagher in. Like, all of the sides around us, people will look at and they'll go, look at all the signings they made, and they will ignore the fact that all the players that left are quite important. Whereas to us, we made one signing. Sure, I would have liked more, as I've said. But the player that left, Jack Harrison, doesn't really take anything away from our squad right now. Ultimately, we are 6 points clear of the relegation zone at the minute, which is a damn good place to be. Everyone was going into this season saying, if we survive on goal difference, I will absolutely take that. But now we're doing better than surviving on goal difference, and people are already screaming that we're screwed. Like, Arsenal have beaten a side 4-0 this season. I know, they got absolutely embarrassed. They were called Atletico Madrid. They beat teams, and a lot of people have taken the fact that we've lost to the league leaders as we're doomed. It happened, and it was followed up by a deadline day where we didn't do anything. I would have liked us to do something, but I don't think it was necessary. Ultimately, I think we have what we need for the rest of the season, and it's about using it right. And if we use the resources that we have effectively, we will be fine. As always, that's just my opinion. I'm sure there'll be many opinions in the comments, so just shout them in my general direction. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe as well, that'd be nice. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you later. We're okay. Don't panic. Take a breath. We'll be fine. Let's just beat Forest. Then people will be more chill. Toodaloo.